All right, welcome back to the STR podcast, otherwise known as the Start the Rebuild podcast. This is episode 14. I'm your co-host Tim Fournier alongside Ian Mills.
What's going on, guys? It is a beautiful Friday morning in August. I don't know how it is in Charlotte, but in Binghamton it is very cold for some reason. It's very chilly up here, which can only mean one thing. It is football weather.
Oh my
We're
God, I can't
real
wait.
close to football. Preseason week 3 is this weekend, I think.
Just
College
started last
football,
night.
yeah, football starts late
Tomorrow.
August. That starts tomorrow, and then
Week is through.
high school football practices in New York State started on Monday. So we got it all. Where do you want to start? College football,
Well,
NFL.
actually, so first things first, I do want to say I think we should go over our goals from last week really quick,
Okay.
how we did with that, and then
Okay.
we'll get into sports. But this just popped into my head, and I really don't want to forget it. Speaking of high school sports, craziest full circle thing of all time. McQuaid football plays Pittsford this year on the schedule.
Hmm.
And, I played 3 years McQuaid football, blah, blah, blah. I played middle linebacker, O-line. My cousin, who has like always been like very similar to me, he's my youngest boy cousin on my mom's side, like built exactly like me, blah, 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 is going to be playing as a sophomore, starting at middle linebacker for Pittsford. And they're playing Quaid this year. And that's just like crazy to me.
Yeah, that is cool. That is
But
very,
it's
very cool.
like I don't know. I just wanted to say that, which is very makes me feel very old.
Yeah, that is like the weird, like when my cousins were playing for McQuaid, I genuinely, not that I ever played, I didn't play like for McQuaid as a senior, but like when they were playing for McQuaid, I was sort of just like, wait, like what? Like what's going on here? Like it is
Yeah,
kind of weird to
nuts.
see to how time passes through the eyes of like your younger cousins and siblings. Not that we have
Yeah.
younger siblings, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, that's nuts. I just wanted to say that quick. But all right, quick goals from last week. Mine was kind of, you know,
Make
not the
some
most defined
concrete.
goals, but it was just keep introducing myself to people, keep trying to meet people. And two people in my class, really three people, in my classes I found like are the same age as me. Been in grad school is really weird because there's a lot of just older people that are going back to school.
Mm.
So I'm in the minority being 23 years old for sure. And a lot of these people have, 10 years of real estate experience and they're coming back. But so meeting the younger people has been great. Met one guy, he went to BYU, so it was cool to, talk to him about like BYU sports was kind of cool. And another guy went to Penn State, so it was very cool to kind of
Done.
meet them. I'm actually gonna grab a beer with them later today, so
Nice, nice way to
meeting some
be.
people.
Yeah, nice. Absolutely good to meet some people. Talk some ball, talk some
Heck yeah.
ball. Penn State play this weekend? Probably not. But
Nah, the only like
there's like no good games this
the
weekend.
only like semi good one is Florida State, Georgia Tech. And Florida State's like an 11-point favorite, and they're like a top 10 team. I forgot what they're ranked right now.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll take it for now.
Yeah, absolutely. It
It's
is
a
like
college football game
it
with a
is
good
college football
team.
game. My goal. I did okay with it. Did not
Okay.
My whole thing was just to go to the gym or hike 4 times, I think, and I did it 3 times. So
Bro.
could have been better. Yeah, could have been better. It was but it was a hectic week. It was kind of a very busy week for me,
Yeah, I
so I
know.
sort of um
Very,
preoccupied. So
very big week for you that we will get into
yeah,
very
we can talk
soon at
about later.
some point on the podcast.
Yeah, I will say though, something I did get into differently that I sort of was using. Well, we'll talk about later and other goals, but phone use was something I was
Hmm.
very like
I'm big on that.
using. But we'll talk about that when we get to goals. Let's talk a little ball, little NFL
All
ball.
right. All right. I got a
Let's start,
topic for you if
yeah, let's just shoot it.
I just want to get out of the way. Maybe we can put this in the show doc and you know, tuck it away for future reference. Get our division winners. Something just easy out of the way,
Yeah.
you know. maybe there's going to be way more obvious ones than not, but I'd be interested to see what you're thinking.
I yeah, I am interested. Off the top, I could off the top of the head tell you my eight, and then we could come back next week with a more educated guess.
I think we
Uh,
should just say what it
j-
is now.
okay.
What do you think? Well, so I'm gonna type this out. Hopefully people can't see what I'm typing out right now and they can only see the Zoom recording. If they can, I apologize.
I think
But
they could just assume.
it's episode 14. It's not episode 1,014, you know?
Do you have the written down?
What's that?
Do you have 1,014 written down?
No, I'm saying like we're just new to this, so nothing's gonna be
Okay.
perfect
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, so your AFC North winner.
AFC North winner. I think this is a tougher
Very
pick
tough decision.
because the Bengals will be a lot healthier than they were last year.
I'm very scared of them.
However, I'm still going on the Ravens. I think Joe Burrow, he as good as he is, this is the second season-ending injury he's coming off of. He's always struggled at the beginning of seasons anyways. So I think the Ravens, maybe not by a country mile, but I certainly do think the Ravens. I think Lamar is the best quarterback in the division. So I mean I think that helps. And obviously losing their defensive coordinator, right?
Yeah,
That's tough.
Mike McDonald.
I still think the Ravens are top dog, mostly because I really just think Lamar is a top three-ish quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, that's a highly debated thing. And like obviously I'm a Ravens fan, and obviously I'm supposed to say Lamar is the greatest player of all time. But I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say like sometimes I don't know if I fully agree that he's like the definitive three.
Yeah,
I think obviously Mahomes is one.
yeah,
And then I think there's an argument for two through like four. I think the more consensus one is at Josh Allen at two. And I think
right.
I would agree. But I think there's like some arguments here and there. And then there's kind of like honestly, like I really hate to say it, but Joe Burrow when he's fully healthy is really freaking good
Yeah.
from just a like he makes everything look so easy. Like his like cerebral understanding of the
Yeah.
game and pocket movement and all that stuff. But at the same time, he's had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins his whole career. Well, I guess
And like an
not
all pro defense.
for 1 year. Right. So, when T. Higgins more than likely leaves Cincinnati in a year, what's that going to look like? I don't know. But that's kind of off topic. So you're going with the Ravens.
Correct.
I'm gonna go with the Ravens too, but I also have a lot of the same concerns. Their offensive line, I'm very worried about. Um, the defense, I'm worried about losing the D coordinator, losing some other pieces like Jadeveon Clowney, Patrick Queen. It's a little dicey. I'm really excited for rookie Nate Wiggins in the secondary. But also I'm just really excited to see week one Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield and just like what happens,
Yeah.
what that looks like. And, you know, Derrick Henry might rush for 20 touchdowns this year. And then it's like, I mean, how bad are they going to be? Like what, like their ceiling or their floor is
Yeah.
very
What's
high.
your floor? Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, but anyway, then we'll do the AFC South.
I'll let you go first with the AFC South because I got to think about this one, but I think I actually have an answer. But
On paper, the Texans are the best team.
yeah.
But I will say, I forget what the website is called, but you can like pick every NFL game and then it spits out the standings for the year. And I
Hmm.
did it, and I like doing it every year and kind of picking the games. And then it kind of equates everything for everyone's like schedule difficulty. Because let's say you think the Texans are way better than the Chargers. I have no idea. But if the Chargers have a fourth place schedule or whatever, and their schedule is just way easier. You might be picking the Chargers to win 9 games and the Texans eight, and even though you think the Texans are 1,000 times better. So doing that, I thought the Texans had a really hard schedule. And I
Yeah.
think the Colts are the kind of sneaky team there that were
Sneaky.
like, does Anthony Richardson take that like huge leap? They won 9 games last year and he played like 3 games. You
Yeah.
know, that could be something. Um, I mean, it would be irresponsible for me to pick anyone other than the Texans because I think they're just clearly the best team, and picking any other team would just be like just for the sake of doing it. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna say the Texans, but if this division plays out 10 times, I think they win like 6 or 7 times, not 10 times.
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm gonna do what you just said not to do and pick a team because you sort of don't want to pick the Texans. And I'm gonna pick the Jaguars. And
Okay.
I have some reasoning for it. Um, People think Trevor Lawrence is bad at football. He's
Yep.
not. He's very good. Last
Yeah.
year he had 21 touchdowns and 14 picks, which is not particularly great. The year prior had 25 and 8. My point is, and I think if I remember correctly, like I don't know what the stat is, but there were like a million dropped touchdown catches by the Jags
Yeah.
last year,
That
or
happened.
like 1 yard. Like we see it with like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts,
Mhm.
and even I'm sure I mean a bunch of quarterbacks do it. Like it's not like you get the 1 yard rushing touchdown that some guys like Trevor Lawrence just don't get because they don't have the frame for it. My point here is I think there is going to be some regression with the Texans because, as what you just said, they are playing a first place schedule as opposed to a last place schedule. And the Jaguars will be playing what, a third place schedule? No, or second place? Either way,
Third.
third place. Yeah, okay. Third place schedule. And I just think Trevor Lawrence is a lot better than people give him credit for. Doug Peterson, also not a bad coach. I think he's a
I don't
good
know
coach.
about he like this. I feel like he's going through the same like trajectory as the Eagles, where it was like actually like, oh, maybe this guy has a really good offensive mind, and then it just like reaches this peak and then plummets. Like I feel like we're
I
seeing
think
the same
I
thing.
think his decision making last year at the end of games was very questionable. Um, but I'm gonna go with the Jags, and I think a lot of that's mostly because of what you said, like, oh, I want the sexy pick, but also I think the Texans are due for some regression, and I think Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are kind of on the opposite trajectory. Although I did just say like, hey, a lot of drop touchdowns, and they added Gabe Davis, and he's like the king of dropped catches downfield. So maybe I'm just dumb.
I don't know. The Jags are still a very good team, so I don't think
Yeah,
that's something crazy stupid. But now we're on to the AFC East.
yeah.
Are you confident the Bills are winning the AFC East?
I am, and my reasoning for it is not necessarily because I think the Bills are as good as they've been, because they're not. The issue with the Buffalo Bills right now is that they don't really have a receiver one. They don't really have a guy who can separate downfield.
Hmm.
Didn't have Gabe Davis sort of could do it at some point last year. By the end of the season, Stephon Diggs could not. We saw it in the Chiefs game, in the playoff game when he dropped a pass, a 65-yard bomb, dropped a pass, and then when like, oh, so close. It's like, whatever. It's not important. I'm not mad about it. So they don't have a receiver one, and secondly, their defense is very hurt. Matt Milano out until December. They don't have a safety. Cole Bishop is still hurt. Mike Edwards is I don't know if he's gonna be ready for week one. I don't think so. So like right now is like, is DeMar Hamlin gonna start week one? Maybe. Like that's a real possibility.
And Matt Milano got hurt again, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's out till December, as I mentioned. So there are issues with the Bills, but I think my questions are more about the Jets and the Dolphins than they are about the Bills. Like just because the Dolphins defense losing Christian Wilkins, like it's in and that was Van Ginkel, right? I'm not making that up or
Yeah, he went to the Vikings, but they are getting back Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips.
yeah, that's true. So my thing is more about with the Dolphins, it's we've seen it before. You know, time and time again, Tua just isn't like that. He's not a big difference maker. He's not like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, or if he is, he's sort of on the outside looking, just barely on the outside looking in. And then yeah, you're losing some guys on the defense, but as you mentioned, getting Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips back is big. With the Jets, it's I just can't believe in Aaron Rodgers right now. He's coming off a torn Achilles and he's 40 years old. And he's going to play with an above average, maybe an average offensive line, like, but still a very old offensive. Like, people have loved the Jets O line, like what they've done, and they've done all they could in the offseason to make it as good as they have, but it's still very old. Um,
Yeah, I mean um their two tackles should be very good, but they're like older and kind of injury prone. But they also drafted, um, why can't I think of his name? The Penn State tackle. So I mean, not that rookie tackles are always great, but they have them, Elijah Vera Tucker, and then a young center in
yeah.
his second year, Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. Go Badgers! And then they signed like John Simpson or something. Um, so my take on the division as a whole is the Bills have the highest floor. As long as Josh Allen is on the field, the Bills are incapable of being a bad football team.
Yeah.
The rest of the Bills roster, I just I can't point to any unit or like real like any unit on the team where I'm like, yeah, that's above average. Can you?
I would say their offensive line's probably above average, and I'd say their defensive line's probably above average, just based off of
Above
last year.
above average or average?
I mean, at least average. Um, I'd say their corners. I'd say, I mean, Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas had a very good season last year, but I agree with you. The sentiment, I do agree with your sentiment that the roster outside of Josh Allen is very mediocre. It's
I'm not
very
saying the offensive line is bad or the corners are bad. I'm saying, are they like good? Like when you look at the landscape of the league, are you not trading for like 15 other groups? Are they
I think
definitively
corners.
like
I
top
think
10?
corners. I'm gonna bet. Maybe it's because just of how good they were last year, and it was a small sample size. But Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford were very good last year, so I'm gonna give them above average for corners. Offensive line, I think what was so good for them
The
last
Bills
year.
probably have the worst corners in the division, or at least out of the Jets and the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's probably true. Um, but and then the offensive line, I think what made them so good last year was the fact that they just like everyone was healthy. Like they didn't have any major injuries. So like that consistency, but like you can't really expect that to happen again almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I agree with you that like yeah, the roster in general is kind of mediocre and that's going to limit them because you know, like they're sort of in this year, like the Bills are sort of in this year where they're okay with like they basically took their medicine and cut everyone and took all this dead cap space. So then next year they're going to have money to spend in the offseason.
Okay. Yeah, I mean
And
that's
so
fair. I mean, I think the Bills around Josh Allen have like scrapped everything together to be serviceable. But when it comes to winning a division, making noise in the playoffs, you have to be more than that. So I would be absolutely like floored and shocked if the Bills won anything less than 8 games. And I think they should win 9 to 10 to 11. But at the same time, okay, so the Jets last year won 7 games, amazing defense, clearly. And their offense was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. You couldn't even turn on the TV.
it was really bad.
Aside, there's Aaron Rodgers. If he plays 17 games, like that's a pretty high ceiling for that team.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't play 17 games. Maybe he dies week one. They already have Tyrod Taylor as their back. Like they're already like even if Rodgers goes down in a better place than they were last year.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't just say like, oh, they won 7 games, so now they're at least going to win 8, and they have a ceiling of 12. But I think on paper, if the season starts today and everyone stays healthy the whole time, I think the Jets have the best team in the division. And it's going to be, can the Dolphins like sustain success throughout a season? And can the Jets actually be what they've put together on paper? And then if neither of those happen, the Bills are going to have a chance no matter what.
Yeah.
So maybe that means statistically I should say the Bills, or maybe that means what I think I'm going to do is pick the Jets because I think that defense is so good, obviously.
Pretty
They've
good, yeah.
made offensive line improvements and their defense was so good and their offensive line is clearly better and their quarterback room is clearly better. And that's going to make everything better on offense.
Yeah.
So I don't think people are fully putting together how good the Jets could be because they're just so like there's no way Rodgers is any good. It's gonna if he plays, it's gonna be pretty hard for him to be bad than what worse than what they had last year. And it's gonna be pretty hard for him to be not substantially better.
Right. But my thing, and I agree with you. I 1000% agree with you. My one concern is like if everything what we just said falls correctly, for a defense to be as dominant as they were last year, like
Hmm.
to repeat that year over year is like in the NFL is like we don't really see it often. Like it's almost one of those things. It's like just because offenses can adapt and also like I don't know, like oh injury
Yeah.
regression things like that. So again, I do think the Jets defense was as good as anyone's last season and will once again be very good. And they kept them in games all
Mhm.
season last year. And I think it's reasonable to suggest that they're still going to be a top five defense. Um, but yeah, there is always going to be that little bit of regression just because offenses adjust year over year. Um, and yeah, my big thing is just Aaron Rodgers. I just don't trust that at all right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think if I had to bet one way or the other, I think it goes well. And if it goes well, I think they win the division. But it's impossible. I think what we can agree on is that the Patriots suck, and that's very enjoyable.
Yeah, and they just don't seem to really like Drake May after drafting him.
Yeah, all those like Joe Milton, like obviously he's not good and he's not gonna do anything. The
Yeah.
fact that I like legitimately heard like people be like half joking about like, oh, maybe Joe Milton's like gonna like come out and like be better. It's like what? He showed a lot. He showed some throws in the last preseason game where I was like, oh, well, that is why he was the th third overall pick and everyone thought he should have gone second. But whatever. AFC West, do we really even have to analyze much?
I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, yeah, Chiefs, maybe Joe, Harbaugh, Chargers, but
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're gonna look like. I saw a tweet yesterday that was like the 30 of 32 NFL teams have had someone go on season-ending IR, and the Chargers for like the first time ever are one of the teams without anyone on there. And
mm,
it was the tweet was like the second biggest addition that the Chargers made, other than hiring Jim Harbaugh, was hiring Michigan's strength coach as well, because somehow
yeah,
they're like healthy
Ben
and
Herb.
they're never, yeah, Ben Herbert, and they've never had that. So I don't know. And I'm interested to see like the Greg Roman offense come back into it. And like that's a very high floor raising offense. With Justin Herbert, you'd like to have a higher ceiling, but if you ship those receivers out and that's kind of what you're left with, and you draft an offensive lineman in that high in the first round, like I don't know, maybe it could work.
Gus Edwards Heisman campaign on the way.
Yeah, either him or J.K. Dobbins, the whole Ravens running back room.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. NFC North. You got any take
Yes.
on the NFC North?
What's that? You want me to go
Is it
first?
NFC? Yeah, I was inviting you to go first.
I think the Packers are so good and they have the best quarterback in the division. But I think the Lions have the best roster in the division. Have Although the Packers have really good coaching, I think the Lions have even slightly better coaching. So I think the Lions are a little bit better of a team. And I think if you play, like, I'm going to keep using this line of thinking. If you play this division 10 times, I think the Lions win 5 times. The Packers win 4 times. And Caleb Williams, maybe this is even like less than 1 time. Like in terms of percentage, if you play 100 times, the Bears win like 3 or 4 times because there's a very, very small piece of me that's like Caleb Williams might just come in and be amazing. And they have a good roster.
I say what you said with the Jets. The Bears won 7 games last year and
Yeah,
got better. The Bears won 7 games last year,
right.
so it's possible. I'm gonna go with the Lions. But the Lions should be a bit weary of the direction the rest of the division is going. I mean, Vikings losing JJ McCarthy is not great. Hey, Sam Darnold might be something. I don't know. Probably not. Almost certainly not.
I
But you
think they'll
never know.
be an okay team.
They'll be
I don't
fine
think they'll be
too.
bad.
They could play spoiler end of the season. Bears, we just talked about it. I mean, Caleb Williams, we'll
I think they're
see.
going to be good. It's just a
And
matter of
then,
like, I don't know if they could win the division.
yeah, I agree. And then, Packers are obviously had a very good season last year, getting to the divisional round, and really, honestly, should have been in the NFC Championship. Like that was like pretty bad levels of choke, if I remember correctly. My point here is though, the Lions, great roster. They should be thanking their lucky stars that Ben Johnson did not leave.
Right. I'm not
And
saying with their coaching staff.
no, exactly. Their coaching is great. So my point here is that I think they will win this year, but I think the future for them is sort of not great because Jared Goff, I think, is a sort of that same tier as Tua, where I think he can do some things great. Maybe isn't like the floor raiser people think he is. Or no, he's the floor raiser, he's not the ceiling raiser people think he is.
Mhm.
And then losing potentially Ben Johnson. Like they're gonna lose Ben Johnson this offseason no matter what. Like I just don't see a world where he does not.
You would think, but I
He
mean, it's like,
almost
why didn't he leave this year? Like, maybe he really does just like
well,
his situation
it
there. I
was
don't know.
basically apparently he just didn't want to sign with the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
I
kind of
don't know
fine
how true that
too.
is. Point is though, the division is getting much better. This is
Mhm.
maybe the last year where, you know, like this might be the last year where you can like the Bears probably aren't in playoff contention, or they're in potential playoff contention, but you're not certainly not. Oh, they're going to make the playoffs. The Packers are probably almost certainly going to make the playoffs. So it's like you're getting to a point where all these teams with young quarterbacks are getting better, and you still have Jared Goff, and you're going to lose your offensive coordinator. Although your offensive line is still fantastic, it keeps talking about that, injury regression and guys getting older. So the Lions are my pick this year. But again, I think after this season, things could get a little wonky for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree with pretty much everything you said there.
so NFC South, I'm gonna
Yeah.
rock with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think I'm right there with you.
yeah, I think I kind of just like their roster, and they were like in the view of the division. I want to say I would like the roster in the view of the division and the division not being all, that strong. I think the Bucks having a first place schedule is going to be a little daunting. I think Baker was a fine quarterback last year, and do I think he's going to replicate that? I hope he does, but we'll see. And then, but really with the Falcons, I think a lot of it's coming down to basically replacing sort of what the Jets did. You're replacing like an awful, disgustingly bad quarterback situation.
Ritter was so bad.
Desmond Ridder was horrible with Kirk Cousins, who is not Aaron Rodgers, but he has played more recently than Aaron Rodgers.
Hmm.
And
And even
he,
then, if he gets hurt, I think Michael Penix is going to be better than Desmond Ritter.
yes, exactly.
Gets to go
So,
play.
and yeah, Kirk coming off an injury too. And like, yeah, I think Kirk is just a capable quarterback. Like, I think he's just very being 35 or whatever is going to help. Kyle Pitts, I think is going to, I hate to say this because I say everyone says Kyle Pitts is going to be great. I think he's going to have a great year. I think they
Mhm.
do have the
Yeah,
weapons around him. I think Bijan Robinson,
I think he's
maybe
going to
didn't get the
be
touches he deserved
amazing.
last year. And then defensively, how much, like, what does Matthew Judon have left in the tank? Is he a bigger name than he is a talent at this point? I don't think I'd say that, but I think their defense is going to be capable, very, very capable. And just really looking at the rest of the division, the Panthers, I mean, I'm just not going to talk about them really. The Bucks, again, I think it's sort of due for regression. We keep talking about that thanks to the first place schedule. And then the Saints, Dennis, I don't know who I dislike more as not dislike more, but I don't know who I have more question marks about, Dennis Allen or Derek Carr. And either way, I'm not
Not
confident
even
in either.
question mark. It's like we know who they are, and they're just not that
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think before the Falcons traded for Matthew Judon and then signed Justin Simmons, I was like, I think they're pretty clearly the best team in the division, but they're not like a great team, I don't think. Um, like the Bucks will like fight for the division. I think the Panthers will be better with Canales and Bryce Young, and like they won't be as bad, but they're not going to be fighting for their division. So I thought maybe the Buccaneers would have a chance to like fight for it, but then the Falcons pass rush just looks so awful. Um, and getting Judon is huge for them, I think. And then also signing Justin Simmons, bringing Raheem Morris. Defense should be pretty decent. I think they're just the clear best team in the division,
yeah,
in the worst division in football. So
yeah.
how good are they really? I think if they win a playoff game, that is a very successful year. And if they don't win the division, it's a very unsuccessful year.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Raheem Morris, but yeah, that's a good point too. So yeah, I agree. NFC East.
Yeah. This one's pretty clear in my mind. I don't know about you.
I honestly who won it last year? The Cowboys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with the Cowboys. Were you thinking them or Eagles?
Eagles. I think they're going to be a lot better this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they were just so bad to end the year.
I was gonna say that's sort of my thing is that they were horrible to end the year, so it's like that's kind of the way I'm thinking things. I also think Howie sort of gets like this bump as like a great GM, and I mean, they are a great team. I'm not gonna say he's a bad GM, but like the whole
I
Jahan
was
Dotson
thinking, yeah.
the
I was
Jahan
thinking about
Dotson.
this in the shower the other day. I was like, if your team's like big name player that everyone knows isn't good anymore is like if they are like over the hill, you know they're gonna go to the Eagles and
Yeah,
you know they're gonna do nothing. But then somehow like Howie Roseman is gonna get the credit for that. But
yeah,
then the team's still gonna be good for like, and it has nothing to do with signing that player.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah,
add to the
yeah,
fuel that
yeah,
he's the
yeah, yeah.
greatest GM of all time. So like he should get his flowers as an amazing GM.
Yeah, he's a
But
great
it's
GM.
but it's
He
not
gets it for the
because he
wrong
just like
reason.
swindles everyone.
Yeah, and it's like the whole
I
like
don't know.
Jahan Dotson trade. It's like I actually think they overpaid for Jahan Dotson, maybe a little bit, but
I don't know.
uh,
I think he could be good.
yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is he's like, where is he going to fit in the pecking order of targets? Because again, they're going to run the ball a lot too. Whatever, it's not really important. I think Dak Prescott is a lot better quarterback than people give him credit for, and I think that's kind of a common take at this point. So maybe I'm
No, there's definitely a lot of people that think he just sucks, which I think is wrong.
it's just bad take, people. My one concern is losing Dan Quinn. That defense at times was very good, but they obviously had, flashes of being very bad. Like in the playoffs. So I'm going to rock with the Cowboys still, mostly just because I think Dak Prescott is very good. And I think the Eagles, for me at least, like, yeah, they're going to probably get better than what they were at the end of the season, but I don't think they're going to be as good as they were at like they went 11-0 to start or what was it? 11-1 or 10-1 to
Something
start
like that, yeah.
I don't think they're going to be able to do that again. And so like I think if they're going to be better than they were at the end of the season, they're going to be worse than they were at the beginning of the season. So I think it'll sort of even out. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah. I mean, I just think with the Eagles, it's the coordinator changes, I think are going to be very helpful because I think a lot of their problems stem from that rather than personnel. And Adding Saquon is going to be very interesting to me in terms of you have a great offensive line. Now, what happens when you put like an actually super talented running back behind there? I think that's gonna be really interesting. Um, Not that this is necessarily gonna realize the value right away, but the two corners they drafted in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, I think that's right where they needed an injection of youth in the corner room. And I think if one or two of those guys hit, it's gonna be really crazy to see. And I think they just have the best roster on paper, and I think the coaching should be a lot better. And then with the Cowboys, my worries are they're going to be a good team. Dak Prescott, I think, also is a very good player, like you were saying. But he really does have a knack for just sucking in big games. It is actually crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It like is so crazy how tight the correlation is for big games, regular season or playoffs, that Dak Prescott just implodes.
Yeah.
Um, like the 49ers game last year, the Bills game last year, obviously the Packers game in the playoffs. It's like every single time you need to show that like all of the work you've put in against the Giants and the Cardinals and the Commanders and how you like look like you're such a good player. All you have to do is win one of these games to like realize that and like solidify that. And he has failed, it feels like every single time.
Yeah,
But, that doesn't mean they're going to be a bad team. And the other things I worry about are losing Tyron Smith. What does the offensive line shakeup do? And then kind of their, not that they had a lot around him last year, but weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb. It's kind of like Jake Ferguson, 35-year-old Brandon Cooks.
yeah.
I don't know. It's not like they were fine last year, And maybe that's what led to,
T.Y. Hilton was there last year, I think, or that was 2 years ago. Not that he was. I'm just making a joke. I'm not saying he's going to do anything,
yeah,
but
I don't know. I don't know. Although I'm saying those things, they beat the Lions last year. And I'm thinking of that Dak huge play to CD. So like there's that. They should have probably lost because of the 2-point conversion thing or whatever, the tackle eligible thing. Uh, I'm remembering that correctly.
yeah,
But
you're right.
I
You're
just think that the Eagles are an overall better team and they won't have the same collapse as last year. But now we're on to the NFC West as the last division. Who you got?
right. So it's sort of the same talk as we had with a couple of these divisions where it's like the obvious answer should be the 49ers. The obvious
Yeah.
answer should be the 49ers.
Yeah.
But I really want to say the Rams. I really want to say the Rams because I really like Sean McVay and I think Matthew Stafford is so phenomenally like he is so good
Hmm.
and showed it at times last year. I think they're not going to have that. Like they were 3-6 to start the year. I think people forget that. Like they were really bad to start the year
Hmm.
last season. With that all being said, though, I'm gonna go with the Niners. I still gotta go with the Niners. I mean, I think you're right. You're king until you're not. I again, there's still like, do I think Brock Purdy's the best quarterback in the division? No, I don't. Like, I would take Kyler over him, and I would take Matthew Stafford over him. So there's that aspect of it. But
Would you take Gino over him?
I would not take Geno over him. I think it's closer than I think it's close. Like
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
think
I don't think Gino's bad. I don't think
it's a bad question to ask.
Brock Purdy's amazing.
And Geno was kind of bad last year, but the year prior he was phenomenal. So we'll see what happens this year, right? Um, Having the weapons they do, and I don't know if they're going to have Brandon Ayuk this year. It's
Yeah.
sort of like maybe, and what the reports are suggesting that if they do trade Brandon Ayuk, they're going to trade for another receiver to sort of try to like not as good of a receiver, obviously, but like
Right.
you're going to hopefully at least be able to fill that hole. I don't even think it matters. I think like everything else around him, like Christian McCaffrey, in theory, staying healthy would be phenomenal. He stayed healthy last year and was phenomenal. And obviously Debo and Kittle, and also the defense, I think is just still going to be pretty good. So, and Brendan Staley's calling their shots on the defense this year, right?
I actually don't know.
I think he is. Well, I'll let you answer. I'll look that up. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Niners, regardless if it's Brandon Staley or not. I'm going to take the Niners.
Yeah, I think the Niners are, if you're picking anyone else, you're kind of just like trying to be a contrarian. Um,
It's Nick
it's pretty
Sirianni.
clear. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um, and like I really love the Rams too, and I think their offense is going to be very good. I think there's a chance their offense could be better than the Niners.
Yeah.
I really like their interior offensive line additions. Kyron Williams should dominate again. If Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua can actually stay healthy, that would be huge. Um, they even signed Kobe Parkinson, who is a very underrated tight end. Um, I think he's actually going to have a lot of success. That's going to be interesting for me to see. But and Stafford is just so blatantly underrated that he
Yeah.
is like honestly, like I talked about at the beginning of this, that like 2 or 3 through 5 range gets kind of iffy. Once like for every single year, there's like a 3 or 4 week stretch where Stafford is literally just the best quarterback in the NFL and no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the rest of the weeks aren't there. But when Stafford's hot, he's as good as anybody.
Yeah.
Um, and especially with McVay, I just think that defense is gonna be really bad.
Yeah.
Um, I think no Aaron Donald is just going to have so many like ripple effects throughout the defense that it's like, oh, is Kobe Turner like actually that good, or did he just play against Aaron with not against, but with Aaron Donald every single time? Um, and what does the pass rush look like? The corners don't look very good, blah blah blah. So I think they're going to be a very good team, and they're going to like, you know, just it's going to be impossible for these like mediocre to bad teams to beat them when they put up 35 points. But
They're
when
gonna
they
score.
play someone like the Niners and the Niners are holding them to 24, are they going to be able to hold the Niners to less than that? And I don't think so.
Hey, Rams adding Jared Verse, University of Albany alum. He went to Florida State,
Yeah,
but
someone I was talking to someone here from Florida State, and we were just like talking about like how many like NFL players they had in the draft this year. And I was like, "Oh yeah," and like they were like coming from a lot of different schools, like Keon Coleman. We were talking about the Bills, and I was like, "Yeah, Michigan State." And I was trying to remember where Jared Verse went. I was like, "I'm pretty sure it's Albany."
yeah, he did. Yeah, it was Albany. Um, and to correct myself, so Steve Wilkes called the defense last year,
Right. Who was
and they
very good.
fired him.
Yeah,
Nick
it was a
Nick
big thing.
Sorensen, Nick
Sorensen?
Sorensen, uh, Sorensen. Yeah, that's probably how you pronounce it. Is the DC this year. Brandon Staley is the assistant head coach. Don't
Mm.
know don't know why Brandon Staley got in my head. Why I was thinking about Brandon Staley at
I
all,
mean, he
but
was doing something.
he wasn't very good last year.
Yeah, no.
My favorite, well, no, we don't gotta get into that. But yeah, I think Niners pretty easily. I also think the Cardinals deserve a little bit of love, not in terms of winning the division,
I agree.
even close, but just the fact that like they're gonna be better this year. And like Bills week one versus the Cardinals, I don't think is like a slam dunk pick for like the Bills to win that game. Like
I think it'll
Kyler,
be a shootout.
yeah,
I
the
think the
both
Bills are
of
going to win. Like, I would just pick
them,
the Bills to win, but
I would too, but both the defenses
Arnold's
are not.
offense is good. Should be good.
Yeah, Kyler Murray's good. He's a good quarterback. I don't care. Like
Yes.
I just,
That's my
I'm
biggest thing that I fight against the most is people
and
saying that Kyler Murray's bad.
I've probably been on this podcast on the other end, like, no, he's not good, but he's good. Oh, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, that's
The
he's good.
Cardinals' run game the last 8 weeks of the year was like the best in the NFL.
Yeah.
James Conner was amazing
Yeah.
in the year last year. Once
What
Kyler
I
Murray,
what I just said um reminded me of a different thing I've said on this podcast years ago. Years ago, we've won episode 14, but it actually was years ago. What I said with the whole Kyler Murray debate, like 3 years ago, whenever Baker was on the Panthers, maybe
hmm
that might have been 2 years ago. I said, Tim, when we were having this debate, like who's better, Baker Murray, Baker Mayfield, or Tua
yes,
Tagovailoa.
yes.
And I was like, guys, you don't understand. Like at the end of this season, like my perception of Tua was going to be so much higher than Baker. Like Tua's just going to have the better season, which he did. I mean, Tua threw for 1 million yards. Tyreek was amazing, and Baker didn't exist. But now, revisiting that debate, I was correct for that 1 year, and I kind of did my whole home run strut. I think it's pretty close. I think it's once again close. Like we had this debate, and it was like you and our friend Zach, who was on the pod, were like, "Oh, Baker's so much better." I was like, "Oh no, Tua is so much better." And now looking at it, it's like they've kind of both come back together. Like I think most of it's just because Baker had a horrible year, and then he was really good last year, so then he's kind of risen back up to that debate.
Hmm.
But that just reminded me of it
Yeah.
of you know, the
Speaking
great
of things
Baker.
that randomly reminded me of things, so I'm like a big nerd with NFL players and what colleges they went to for whatever
Mhm.
reason. And the way my brain like compartmentalizes all of it is with the colors of the schools for some reason. Like I imagine the player in their like college uniform, and it's I just see like the colors of the school, and then that narrows it down, and like that's how I remember all of this. And Jared Verse, Albany, yellow and purple, blah blah blah. I was at this like networking for a grad school event yesterday, and I was talking to this guy who went to East Carolina, right? And I and he's like a developer in Charlotte, and he's like very connected person, and we were just talking and blah blah blah. And he's not like that much older than us. Like he's not like an old head. He's probably like, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s. And I was like, "Oh, you went to East Carolina? Like, any chance you were there with Gardner Minshew?" Just like as like random conversation, you're just like standing next to each other, and he was like, "No, no, he was a little after me." He was like, "The big guy that was there was Zay Jones," and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm from like Bills country, so that was like huge when he got drafted there." And he was like shocked that I even knew who Zay Jones was. And then I was like, "Yeah," and then the big calling card is Chris Johnson, right? And he was just shocked that this guy from New York and then Wisconsin was just naming East Carolina football players. And then he was like laughing about it, and he was like, "Oh well, here's my number. Let me know if you ever want to connect sometime. Like I like know a lot of developers in the area. If I can ever make an introduction for you or something." And I was like, "Let's go!" Like the
Oh
one
man.
time my like absolute like for no reason knowledge of where people went to college in the NFL actually helped me for once.
I won the national championship with East Carolina last night.
Let's go.
It was Eastern Carolina or East Carolina versus NC State in the national championship, which was confusing, but we blew them out. We smoked them. The week prior in the semifinal, we played Oregon, who was like the number one seed, and we were down 17 points in the fourth quarter. It was a big comeback. But, all right, goals for this week. Anything
Yeah.
big, Timbo?
Goals for this week. Well, I will say next weekend, we got to figure out what time we're doing this podcast. I should be able to do it normal time, especially if we do it like at the time we did today. I'm going to Dallas next weekend to visit my friends from Wisconsin that moved there.
Mhm.
Um, so that's going to be going on. I'd like to keep doing the same thing that I'm doing in terms of introducing myself to people, but trying to think of a specific goal for next week. I've been trying at the same time, and we can talk about this maybe more on the next podcast, to while I'm in grad school and kind of looking for a job right now, to like use the extra time I have like very regimented. And honestly, I just want to like put in all the extra time I can in terms of studying and not at the end of the day feel like I didn't really do much today. And I really put a lot of time into studying. And I've also been creating content for myself, short form stuff. And I want to just like build a schedule where it's just like a machine that I kind of like get done every single day. So I don't know if productivity is the right word or what. Um, but I want to put a major focus on going all in on school and creating stuff for myself.
Cool. Similar-ish. Productivity is a big one for me, but goals. In terms of goals, I mentioned it. I teased it, if you will, earlier in the episode about screen time. I have like deleted all of the like apps that like you just endlessly scroll on my phone.
Mm,
Because YouTube was like the big thing for me, was just going on YouTube and watching videos. And so I deleted YouTube because I was like, come on, it's taking up too much of my time. In the last couple days, it has been very helpful. I also did the thing where I turned the color filter on my phone to black
Yeah,
and white
grayscale. Yep.
grayscale. I don't know if that actually does anything, but it feels like it does. Like I'm
Hmm.
less whatever, and it's helped a lot. Like I've really like the last couple days like gotten so much work done in a much shorter amount of time. Um, my work, I'm also been like my two feature packages I've done the last 2 days on high school football teams. I've been very happy with them, and I think a lot of it's because I've had like I'm not constantly like stopping what I'm doing to look at my phone. Like I'm just like it's like a one stream of thought over the course of like a couple of hours that I'm working on. So
Hmm.
that's nice. So yeah, I think right. Oh, and I guess in terms of a goal is to have my screen time lower it, cut it in half. We'll say that.
I like that.
We'll
I
cut it
did
in
that
half.
for a while, and what I did was I kept the apps, but I like you can remove them from your
From your
home
home
screen,
screen. Yeah.
but so you have to like search them to go on it, and I put time limits on it. So
Mm.
after a certain amount of time, it'll like kick me out. You can technically still just ignore that and go back into it, but it's helpful when like if you've been scrolling for 10 minutes and then it like comes up and said like, "Oh, like your time limit's up." But you'd be like, "Oh, wow, yeah, I've been using this way too much." So,
All right.
sounds good to me.
All right.
Uh,
Well, this has been lovely as always.
of course. So,
Thank you
next
very
week,
much.
episode 15 will be live. Oh yeah.
Yeah, well,
All right. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for watching. Oh, that's the wrong button.